everybody, I'm Connor, that's Doug, and you are listening to the longest running school district podcast in the South Sound. And we have a really, really special show for you this week, don't we, Doug?
We absolutely do, but before we get to it, we are going to tackle useless trivia because after today's show, this trivia will feel even more useless than it's going to feel right now. So it's a really great show ahead. Connor, why don't you kick us off with your useless trivia of the week?
Okay, and just to add to it, I'm going to mention that mine is particularly useless this week. But
Fantastic.
Doug, did you know that there's enough iron in your blood to make a small nail?
What, like a fingernail or a nail for hammering?
You see a lot of iron fingernails, Doug?
I thought it was just a size comparison.
No, a nail for like nailing. So it turns out the average adult has about 4 to 6 grams of iron in their body, most of it in hemoglobin. A small iron nail weighs roughly the same, so like I said, it's useless.
How about that? Boy, yeah, and you warned us too, and I think it's particularly
still underwhelming.
Useless. What is your source this week?
My source is basic human biology.
That is not a source, much like Facebook.
Well, okay, in all fairness, I got it from ChatGTP.
Oh my gosh. So, okay, take that with a grain of salt.
Or a gram of iron.
Well done. And call up your local biology teacher, and you can fact check that one for us. Mine comes from a very reputable source, but I actually did fact check it alongside that because I didn't really believe it. My useless trivia of the week: the loudest recorded cat purr is almost as loud as a vacuum cleaner.
Wow, that is a loud cat.
It was Smokey the cat. This is in 2011. He broke the world record for the world's loudest cat purr. It hit 67.8 decibels. That's about as loud as a vacuum cleaner said mental floss. So I decided to double check mental floss, and it turns out it's not actually as loud as a vacuum cleaner, according to the Yale Environmental Health and Safety Decibel Level Comparison Chart, which I checked out. So 67 puts it in the range of a normal conversation. Vacuum cleaner clocks in at 75 decibels.
Man, mental floss, just playing fast and loose.
Really mailing it in. They could have meant one of those cordless vacuum cleaners. Those are a little quieter.
Or Dustbuster. We'll give them the benefit of the doubt here.
But it is still a pretty loud cat.
And a useless piece of trivia.
Very useless. Well, our very special guest today is Nalago Nunyango. She is a Bethel Middle School ELA and Washington State history teacher. That's 8th grade ELA and 7th grade Washington State history if you're keeping score at home. And this is her third year here at Bethel Middle School. Nalago, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Now, you spent the first part of your life living in Namibia, and in your village, there were no school buses like we have here. How long was your walk to school?
Okay, so for my primary school and middle school, it was just one school. That was maybe 20 minutes walk.
Okay.
Yeah, 15 if I'm running. We used to run a lot. And then when I was a 10th grader, that was about 4 or 5 miles, honestly.
My gosh.
Yeah, that was a long distance. I used to get up at 5 in the morning so I can get there when school starts at 8:30.
Oh, my goodness.
But I was determined, though.
Obviously, just your passion for education, even just getting to school, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
You see, where I am from, poverty is your motivator. I really didn't want to live in the village for the rest of my life. I wanted to get out and I wanted to do things, but I had inspirations. I wanted to be somewhere. And so I studied very hard. There is no electricity in the village growing up. You still have to get up and then go get water, fetch firewood. And then if it's cultivation time, because we are communal farmers there, you have to do things before you go to school. And then coming back is the same story. And then you either have to use, the moonlight if the moon is out, or you have to use just fire or kerosene if you are lucky to study. There should not be anything to stop you. So that was our motivator, right? I wanted to drive a car one day. I wanted to own a TV. I wanted to watch a TV in my own home. Just simple things like that.
Well, you didn't actually end up leaving your village right away. Eventually, you started a school at a nearby border crossing. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
it's kind of like was a daycare. So here's what happened. It's just offices and a few houses for people who go to work there. So it's not like a town with school equipped with all the amenities, like school, clinic, or whatever. And then one of my aunties told me that, when the parents are at work, the kids are just running around. And so I was like, oh, okay, I can go and then just set up my daycare. So I was living in my auntie's house. Auntie Simvola, I miss her. And then I lived in my auntie's house and I was taking care of the kids and just teaching them, how to read, how to write. We played games and I would get paid for doing that.
So after 3 decades in Namibia, you moved to Washington and you went back to school. You told me you're a proud Green River Community College graduate, a proud PLU alum. That's where you got your bachelor's and master's degrees. But when you got your first substitute teaching job, and this is in a different district than Bethel, you told me it was a bit of a shock.
What I saw horrified me. The students seemed so apathetic to education. They seemed unmotivated. They seemed like they didn't want to be there. And then I thought I can use my story and my passion that I have for education to be in the classroom because somebody's got to do it. And that was just from, being a substitute and seeing what I was seeing in the classroom and how students interacted with, the education system. To me, it appeared that it was just a foreign concept and they really didn't understand why they were there.
So we have actually been told by other of your colleagues that you have extremely high standards for your students and you kind of don't accept less than that. What do you hope your students take away from their time with you, in addition to just the normal facts and things that that every teacher is going to deliver to them? Are there things that you in particular feel like you're particularly qualified to give them?
I want my students to understand the reality of life. I am not going to lie to them. Life is always going to be hard, and it's even going to be harder if you are not educated. So here's the thing. They don't need to become engineers. Not every child is going to be an engineer. That's not how it works. There is a diversity of talents which make society stronger. I tell them, even if you're going to be a manager in Safeway, you still need education. You need to acquire the skills how to work with other people. Reading is important. All these skills, we acquire the knowledge from education, from school, to be able to be productive members of society. So I do not lie to my children, and I tell them the truth, and I hold them at high expectations. I don't accept any less. Because that communicates to them that I see them, I see their abilities, and students are very smart. So they will tell you some of their best teachers is teachers who believe in them and challenge them and hold them to high expectations.
Absolutely. It's something I think is tough for a middle school student. They are not seeing life after graduation, which is, 4 or 5, 6 years ahead of them, but you are challenging them to look at what they're learning now and how it's going to apply to them in the future. I think that's fantastic.
Every lesson matters, and it leads to, the next step. And so I want them, when they leave 8th grade and they're going to high school, they are not going to struggle. I do not want to do them a disservice.
We so appreciate everything you're doing for our students here in Bethel, and you're also doing things for students back in your village in Namibia. In fact, you were over there this summer, and it wasn't just to visit family. You're giving back to your community. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
I always have my people at heart, and especially the kids. There is a saying in my language that if you do not have young cows, right? If you don't have calves, then you don't have cows in the future. And if you do not have seedlings, then you do not have a harvest. So the children are the seedlings. The children are the future. You and I and you, we were both children, and look where we are now. So I'm thinking, what if I start a foundation and I would be raising money here, and then I go back to the village and help with the needs that those children are facing. And then so I thought about that and I was like, it's happening. So I decided, I just came up with an idea. My foundation is going to be called Omagano Foundation. Omagano means a gift that is given to you and you do not have to repay back. It's given to you because I see humanity in you. You know, the philosophy of Ubuntu, I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. It's basically saying that I am because you are.
That's beautiful.
People are people because of other people. And so I decided Omagano Foundation, the first thing that I did was to have a book drive at Green River Community College, and I was supported by fellow students, I was supported by professors. And in 2014, I returned home with a backpack with books and some school supplies, just with a backpack and some school supplies. And then also I put books in my son's suitcases and in my own suitcases just here and there, right? And that's just how I started that work.
I love that. And that was back in 2014. So for over 10 years, you've been giving back. How has that grown? And what are some of the ways you're helping the village now?
I do purchase school uniforms and backpacks. If I show you some of the pictures, these kids are literally carrying backpacks that are torn. And they walk to school. If it's raining, the books are going to get wet. They are going to school barefoot. So my mission has been to always make sure that they have decent shoes and decent school uniforms. I believe in school uniforms because they communicate we are here for one purpose and one purpose only. And then also I remember myself going to school with a torn school uniform, right? So in other words, the work that I do, I really am taking care of my younger self. And I do purchase groceries for families. So this time I took care of about 26 households. And then I do spend maybe about $300, $400 per household. And in Namibia, that just goes a long way.
That is so inspiring, and we both really want to thank you for everything you're doing. You have a unique perspective I'd love for you to share. You've gone to school and worked in schools in Namibia, and you teach here now. Are there things that you think American schools can learn from Namibian schools, or maybe even vice versa?
That's a very good question, because the cultures are different. You know, the Washington State history, the first essential question for this first lesson is how geography affects culture, development, and history. Schools in the United States, they do have resources, enormous resources. The difference is that many schools in Namibia, they do not have the resources like we do here, but it's just the only lesson is we need to remind our children, why does public education exist? It's communicated very well over there. You are in the school because someday we're going to need teachers and we're going to need nurses and the future is on you for this country to advance. As students, that's your responsibility. If we do right by our kids, if we are honest with them, if we care about them, if we love them enough, we got to love these kids and we got to work and we got to care for them. Because once you have interacted with a student as a teacher, you have touched the future.
Nalago Nunyango, thank you so much for joining us, and more importantly, thank you for the work you're doing both here at Bethel Middle School and in your home country of Namibia. It's absolutely inspiring, to say the least, and we could not be more thrilled that you're on Team Bethel and that you're able to share your work with all of our students here.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Well, thank you once again to our very special guest this week, Bethel Middle School's own Nalago Nunyango.
Absolutely. We appreciate that conversation, and we'll be back next week with a brand new episode.